There was a small sheep named Milo. He lived near a quiet river. Every day the river moved past him, fast and cold and never stopping. And on the other side of that river there was a green hill, the greenest hill Milo had ever seen, full of soft grass, the kind of grass that smelled like rain and honey mixed together. But Milo never crossed. Every morning he walked to the edge of the water. He looked at it. He felt the cold mist on his nose. And then he stepped back. Not today, he told himself. I don't feel ready. Maybe tomorrow I'll feel stronger. Maybe tomorrow the water will be calmer. The water was never calmer, and Milo was never stronger, because he never moved. He just stood there, day after day, watching the river, waiting for something inside him to change. He had been watching that hill for a long time, since early spring. Now the leaves on the trees near the river bank were starting to turn yellow. Time had moved. Milo had not. And still, every morning, he came to the edge. And every morning, he walked back. He told himself it wasn't fear. He told himself he was just being careful, smart, patient, waiting for the right moment. But deep inside, he knew the truth. There was no right moment coming. He just didn't want to feel the cold. One afternoon, a small wren landed on a rock beside him. Tiny bird, brown feathers, bright black eyes. Her name was Fern. She looked at the river. Then she looked at Milo. "You going across?" she asked. "One day," said Milo. Fern tilted her head. "What are you waiting for?" "I need to feel ready," said Milo. Fern was quiet for a moment. She looked at the water. Then she looked at her own small wings. "I'm afraid every time I fly," she said. "Every single time." Milo blinked. "Then why do you fly?" She hopped to the very edge of the rock. "Because the feeling doesn't go away by waiting," she said. "It only goes away by going." And then she opened her wings and flew straight across the river. She didn't look graceful. She wobbled. The wind pushed her sideways. For a moment she dropped low, almost touching the water. But she made it to the other side. She landed on the green hill and turned around. She looked back at Milo with those small bright eyes. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Milo stood at the edge of the river for a long time after that. He watched the water. He watched Fern sitting on the green hill. She had started eating the soft grass. She looked calm, like crossing had cost her nothing, like it had been easy. But Milo had seen her wobble. He had seen the wind push her sideways. He had seen her drop low over the water and nearly fall. She had been afraid. She had gone anyway. His hooves were cold from the wet ground. The water moved fast in front of him. He could hear it rushing over the stones. It looked deep in the middle. It looked dark. He didn't feel ready. He didn't feel brave. He didn't feel anything that told him to go. But he thought about what Fern had said. The feeling doesn't go away by waiting. He thought about all the mornings he had come here, all the times he had turned back, all the tomorrows he had promised himself. None of them had brought the feeling he was looking for. Not one. He stepped into the water. It was cold, very cold. It hit his legs like something sharp. He gasped. The current pushed against him immediately, strong and heavy. He hadn't expected it to feel like this. He hadn't expected it to fight him. He almost went back. His body wanted to go back. Every part of him was saying, "Turn around. Wait. Not yet. Not today." but his legs kept moving. One step, then another. The water got deeper. It reached his belly. The cold moved up into his chest. He could feel the stones shifting under his hooves, slippery and uneven. He stumbled once and went sideways, and his heart jumped hard into his throat. He did not stop. The middle of the river was the worst part. The current hit him fully there. It pushed his whole body sideways. He had to lean hard just to stay on his hooves. The water was loud around him. He couldn't see the bottom clearly anymore. He couldn't see anything but moving water and stone and cold gray sky above him. He thought, I made a mistake. He thought, I should have waited. He thought, I'm not strong enough for this. And then his hoof found solid ground, a big flat stone, steady and real under his weight. He pressed down on it hard. He leaned into the current. He took one more step forward, then another. The water began to get shallower, slowly. He could feel it dropping from his belly, then down to his knees, then just around his hooves, and then he was out. He stood on the other side of the river, soaking wet, shaking from the cold. His legs were unsteady. His breath was ragged and loud. He looked back at the water. It looked exactly the same as before, fast, cold, dark in the middle, just as frightening from this side as from the other. The river had not changed, not even a little, but he was on the other side now, and that made everything different. Fern hopped over to him across the green grass. She looked at him, wet and trembling and wide-eyed. You made it, she said simply. I almost didn't, said Milo. His voice was still shaking. Everyone almost doesn't, said Fern. That's what crossing feels like. Milo looked down at the grass beneath his hooves. It was soft, softer than anything on the other side of the river. He took one slow breath, then another. The shaking started to ease. The cold in his chest slowly turned into something else, something warmer, something quiet and steady. He had not felt ready before he crossed. He did not feel ready during the crossing, but he was here. He had done it without the feeling ever arriving. He understood something then, the feeling he had been waiting for all those mornings at the river's edge. It wasn't something that came before. It was something that came after. Sometimes long after. Sometimes only once you were standing on the other side, soaking wet and barely steady on your feet. You don't get brave first. You get brave by going. He stood there for a long time, just breathing, just feeling the grass under his hooves and the wind on his wet wool, looking back at the place he had stood for so many mornings. It looked so small from here. The other bank looked narrow, ordinary. He had made it so large in his head. He had made the river into something impossible. But it was just water, cold and fast and real, but just water. Will it feel easier next time? He asked Fern. She thought about it honestly. A little, she said, but not because the river changes, because you will remember that you already crossed it once. Milo nodded slowly. That was enough.